Okay, Dr. Francis, we can see your slide now. You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues. All protocol observed. Okay, this afternoon I'll be discussing migration of financial services to cloud, the security risks, privacy concerns, and acceptable practices. So in doing this, the highlights will include the introduction, cloud concepts, under which I'll be defining the cloud, computing architecture, deployment models, and service models. Then I go on to discuss the cloud benefits, then move on to the financial services in the digital economy, cloud security risk and privacy concerns, cloud security model, the key
Hello,
determinant
ma. Please,
factors, then conclusion and any question.
Hello, ma.
Hello?
Please, can you maximize your slide, please?
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
okay, let me get to, okay, sorry. Slideshow. Can you see my screen now?
Yes. We
Is
can. You
it,
can go ahead, please.
is it better now?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
thank you.
perfect. Yeah.
Thank you. Like I said, I will be discussing migration of financial services to the cloud, under which I'll be talking about the security risks, privacy concerns, and acceptable practices. The highlights we take into through introduction, then the concepts, which will include the division of the cloud, computing architecture, deployment models, then the service models. I'll go ahead to discuss the cloud benefits, then move on to the financial services in the digital economy, cloud security risks and privacy concerns, cloud security model, that's the key determinant factors, then conclusion and questions as arise. Then introduction. So we all know that everybody is talking about cloud. But most importantly, I'll be focusing on Nigerian financial institutions, the movement of the cloud, financial services to the cloud. What brought about this, as we know, the technology is changing, customers need is changing, everything is changing, and banks may not want to continue to invest in infrastructure. Then the need for this cloud, because it will allow everybody, wherever you are, to be able to access financial services from anywhere, at any time, from any devices. However, those series of solutions have earlier been proposed to enable data and privacy protection in the cloud, but there are still emerging security risks and privacy concerns that we should be discussing this afternoon. Why? Because the institutions lack sufficient visibility and control over their technology infrastructure and sensitive data that utilize cloud services. This is the main problem and challenge, and that's why I can see I highlighted it. So the emerging security risk and privacy concerns will be attributed to a lack of understanding of key factors to understand in migrating critical financial services to the cloud. What are we discussing? What are we discussing here? Like we said, everybody is moving pieces. Do we move to the cloud? Big class of services, which ones are critical and which ones are not critical? We'll be going ahead to see why we have these issues. Then the definition, before I move on to discuss the cloud security risk and privacy concerns, let's even look at what the cloud service is all about. And according to NIST, it said a model for enabling convenient on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources, which includes networks, servers, storages, applications, and services that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or server provider interaction. Then the cloud is simply means storing or accessing your data and programs over the internet rather than your own hard drive. So what exactly is this cloud? It is somewhere at the other end of your internet connection where you store your files and can be accessed from anywhere and at any time and from any device. That's what the cloud is. So what is telling us in essence that cloud is not in the air, is not in the vacuum. Cloud means that from any, Instead of hosting your own services in your own infrastructure, you have outsourced that to another person to host on your behalf, and your clients or your customers can access such services from anywhere, at any time, and from any device. Then if we are looking at the pictorial definition of a cloud, we can see the internet, we see the mobile, the PC, the mini node. These are different devices that are accessing these services from any part of the world at any time. You can see the notebook, the remote desktop database. This simply defines what cloud is all about. Then let's look at the cloud computing architecture. Under cloud computing architecture, there are two main things that are involved there: the service delivery model and the deployment delivery models. Now let's look at the service delivery models. Under this, we have three key service delivery models. The first is infrastructure as a service, we have platform, and we have software. Now, in summary, what is this infrastructure as a service? My dear listener, for the sake of time, I'll be abridging some of these definitions to be able to meet up with the time, please. Then it's looking at the base of the cloud model. It covers servers, computer, hardware, storage, processor, memory. Common example is Amazon. What is it talking about here? It's a situation whereby you only want your service, the cloud service provider, to provide infrastructure. Then the platform, the data, the application, every other thing, you make provision for that. Then there's another kind of model which we call platform as a service. In this model, it serves as the middleware of the service model, provides platform and framework for developing and testing software and mobile applications. Common example is Google Apps that we use, and Microsoft Windows Azure that we all use. It is platform as a service. Then the last one is software as a service, which is the topmost layer of the service model. It allows users to access various applications on internet. Example is Salesforce. What does this one imply? It implies that you only provide your data, whereby the customer, the CSP, provides the platform and infrastructure. So most often this is much easier to manage. But we're going ahead to see the benefits and also the challenges that are faced each of these services. So we look at the structure. You see the software as a service, or the platform then you have the infrastructure as a service. So what is telling us here that the commonest one, which is infrastructure as a service, and the way it is, so that is also the order of security and the order of how vulnerable they are. As we see infrastructure, as we are moving along, you see that infrastructure as a service is more vulnerable, followed by platform, then followed by software as a service, in terms of providing security. Because what it means that in terms of infrastructure as a service, it means that you, the data owner, or the institution, will provide your security, whereby the cloud service provider is only providing you with infrastructure. Then in terms of platform, is providing both the platform and the infrastructure, and also depending. And as we move along, we'll be seeing where we discuss about the shared responsibility between the cloud service provider and the data owner. Who does what at what time? All these things will be discussed as we move along. Then I just shared a sample of this service model. This is a typical of the Microsoft Azure. So if you look at the topmost left, I have a whole full of the packed software. The packed software, followed by the next one is discussing about the infrastructure as a service, followed by the platform as a service and software as a service. And what is basically showing us here is showing us the responsibility between the cloud service provider and the data owner. So, like we have seen the first row, we are seeing a whole bunch of package software. The second one is now showing us we have the one we have in orange and the one in blue. The cloud service provider, we provide the visualization, the servers, storage, and networking. While you, the data owner, will provide your applications, the data, runtime, middleware, and operating system. If you want to subscribe to platform as a service, it means that cloud service provider will be providing you with the runtime, the middleware, OS, visualization, servers, storage, and networking. Whereas you'll be coming up with your applications and data. That is what they will make a provision for you to put in the data center. But if you want to subscribe to a software as a service, you see what the service provider will provide for you, including the security. We move ahead. Then for the deployment models, we'll be looking at the private cloud, the public cloud, and the hybrid cloud. So in summary, a private cloud is a situation whereby the infrastructure is dedicated to a specific organization. You don't share for anybody. It's operated solely for a single organization. The costs are high since the hardware will be updated periodically. Security is kept in check since new threats come up every day. However, in public cloud, the services are open for public use. What it means that you share the infrastructure with other people you don't even know, and are accessible to be registered public users. Unlike the private cloud, then the service is also free. So, if looking at these three attributes of public cloud, it tells us that it's not secured. Then the hybrid, we are looking at the situation whereby you utilize both private and public cloud service resources. But note that public cloud is the most sustainable deployment model due to its availability to malicious public users. So I just say, let me just take this brief few minutes to explain the concepts. So by the time we'll be discussing the security, will be flowing. So this one, sorry. So this slide is showing us the benefits of the cloud. Why are organizations fast moving to the clouds, including the financial institutions? So we have a whole lot of benefits. Why organizations, business benefits, why organizations are fast moving into clouds, if despite the security and privacy concerns. So these are the list of benefits, which are also not limited to this. Then we'll now be looking at we'll also be looking at this now, financial services in the digital economy. So we'll now look at that rapid evolution in digitization, technologies and user behaviors are transforming the ways banks interact and offer services to their customers. Hence, the cloud services have become vital to the businesses and the adoption has rapidly increased. Financial institutions are shifting their data, application and infrastructure to cloud computing environment to gain the competitive advantage of its benefits. So this slide is telling us why organizations, including financial institutions, that we know that they are managing sensitive data, that they are fast moving to the cloud. Why? Technology is changing, evolution in digitization, and even the customers' behaviors. Every day, customers' needs are changing. Customers are becoming more innovative in making their requests. And as this is happening, banks may not continue to be investing in technology on infrastructure, since these technologies and infrastructure are fast changes. So the migration to the cloud makes it easy for the bank to be more agile and adapt to the moving technology. So despite this, we still have the security concerns. We have discussed the benefits of the cloud. This slide is showing us the security concerns on the cloud. Even despite all the business benefits, the whole lot of concerns that we have there that will be listing out here, the data breaches as we often hear, misconfiguration and inadequate change control, lack of cloud security architecture and strategy, insufficient identity, credential access and key management, and a whole lot. So these are the concerns. But looking at the target discussion, the financial institutions, should they be moving along as others are moving? They are supposed to be a requirement, guided requirements in terms of the framework, industry requirements that have to put in place to ensure the security of the customer data, both the financial data and the personal records. So having discussed these service models, you can see that each of these service models have its own privacy issues, which we have even outlined here. So that is why we are discussing about the security. What is the responsibility of cloud service provider, and what is the responsibility of the financial institutions that are moving their services to the cloud? Because these securities have to be put in place. If you don't, these are the threats, these are the baseline threats, default threats that are there that they must be addressed. And who address it and how should be discussed and agreed between all the parties. So in looking at this, so what I've even tried to do, because this is forming the main discussion this afternoon, the key determinant factors before migrating to the cloud. Even despite all the benefits, and also considering the the security risk and privacy. What I'm discussing here, that what are the key determinant factors that financial institutions, bearing in mind that they are dealing with customer data, financial data that are very sensitive, also knowing that even migration to this cloud that have also exposed customers' information, both financial information and the personal record and personal identification record to the internet, both Internet of Things and other things. There are key determinant factors that banks must consider and put in place while migrating services to the cloud, because we cannot say we will not move to the cloud. It has become germane. It is a must do the way it's going, else you will not be able to operate in the moving technology. So the first thing I highlighted is collaborative role of the regulations. In the regulations, I listed the Senate Committee on Cybersecurity, the needed that deal with data privacy, CBN, NCC, banks, telecommunications, CSPs, and others. These are the stakeholders and there are also regulators that should come together to come up with a framework. Because even though we are discussing about the financial data, you find out by the time you sit down and look at ecosystem that involve the financial services and the cloud, it goes beyond the banks, it goes beyond the CBN regulating it, because there are other ecosystems that are not within the control of the CBN. For instance, the need that deals with data privacy. So it's expected that I bring in the data privacy regulation into that framework. Let's look at NCC, telecommunication. We all know that most banks, the highest volume of transactions now go via mobile. And most of these mobile applications are hosted in the cloud. So it's expected that all applicable stakeholders will come together, join us, so that at the end of the day, we'll have a complete bucket of security that should be implemented as a framework and as an industry to ensure that the services that are moved to the cloud are secured. The next item I have here is the shared responsibility between the cloud service provider and the financial institutions. One thing is very key. Most often than not, we say the service is the cloud, the application is in the cloud, but in reality, under a cloud arrangement, under governance arrangement, there should be a shared responsibility between the cloud service provider and the financial institutions. And that takes me back to why I first of all discussed the service model, where I discussed about the infrastructure as a service, the platform as a service, and the software as a service. So depending on the model that you subscribe to, and I've also shared the screen showing us for each of the services, what the cloud service provider is providing for you and what you are supposed to provide. And depending on the arrangement, and also take us to the issue of legal commitments, and also our legal team understanding the cloud infrastructure, the cloud technology and cloud computing infrastructure to be able to execute that legal SLA between the cloud service provider and the financial institutions. I do think that this is the most important aspect of this, because most often the things that are in the cloud, you don't have visibility over how the cloud service providers are managing your applications, especially when we are talking about the financial services. Then the next one is the corporate governance. I am looking at the financial institution itself now. Corporate governance, under it, I am looking at the board and executive management functions, their role in giving their approval in terms of security, because most often security is all about cost. In terms of administering that these things are vulnerable, because first and foremost, bank is there to do business, agreed. But in doing this big business, and again, because the financial services are being driven by technology that is constantly changing, and that is the reason for moving to the cloud, because of these benefits, and also to be able to meet up with the competition. It is also very important that security is integrated into that business decision in moving to the cloud. Then the role of internal security and assurance team within the financial institutions. It is expected that this assurance team or internal security team, which most often headed by the CISO, should understand the security implications, the security requirements of the cloud infrastructure. Most often they concentrate on the security of the on-prem services. No, the same kind of control, the same kind of security that's offered to your services on-prem should also be offered to your services in the cloud. And what does it mean? That it means that in acquiring your security solutions, it is expected that you also consider extending those security solutions to the cloud. Whereby you don't want to do that, it means that in your discussion and engagement with cloud service provider, it means that part of what they'll be providing for you is cloud is security, and you pay for it. So depending on the model you want to do, whether you want to provide your security on-prem, extend your security on-prem to the cloud, or the cloud service provider offer you their own security and you pay for the service. Then the next one is implementation of the secure state of the art protection technology to ensure confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the cloud services. And what do I mean here? For the solutions that you're acquiring, security solutions that you're acquiring has to be intelligent enough in terms of monitoring. For instance, your databases in the cloud, are they being monitored? The file integrity, configuration, the change management, all these processes, the same way you have your information security policy and processes on-prem and you're adhering to it, the same way such will also be extended to the cloud to ensure the safety of the services in the cloud. Then it takes also the end user security awareness and discipline. End user now, there are two, both internal and external. Internal are your staff, external are your customers. They also have to be aware. That training awareness have to be there for them to know how to go about it, because we say that one, human being, people is your greatest asset. That is one. Your weakest link, that is two. And again, the strongest threat. So your challenge now is, how do you now suppress the weakest link and the strongest threat to be able to bring to be able to raise up the people at the strongest as your greatest asset. That is where you need people. But one thing is that these three attributes are by default are in every single human being. So your role in information security is to suppress the weakest link in people, the strongest threat in people, and uplift the strength in them to be able to have people as the strongest assets. Then the last is what I call the third-party assurance of cloud service providers' compliance with cloud governance requirements. We know that to have this requirement, most often you don't have full visibility into what is happening in the cloud. So as a standard, we have certified third-party assurance, or we call them third-party auditors, that are certified to audit clouds. So it's expected that financial institutions engage the services of these TPAs to go in and audit these cloud services and obtain a compliance certificate to ensure that that keeping with the required standard, the security standard, some of the certification they need to adhere to, because it is expected that the same information security policies and processes you're maintaining in your on-prem information systems, the same is also expected to be extended to your services in the cloud. So to have this visibility, it's also expected that you have an independent certified auditors that go there to audit them. And it's also recommended that these auditors, you alternate them maybe on every year or by annual, to be sure that they don't get compromised. So here I'm sharing this in the cloud security model. If you look at my left bucket, where I've listed I've listed the different key determinant factors. And what we are saying that most often organizations don't consider these factors. Organizations don't consider these factors. They go ahead and deploy. But what we are saying here that if organizations consider these factors and get them into use to make them effective, efficient, and collaborative, you find out that these factors will address the security and privacy of critical financial services in the cloud. So in summary, this particular slide is summarizing my paper this afternoon, talking about the security risks and privacy concerns, which I have discussed in previous slide. This particular slide is now showing us the key determinant factors that organizations must consider and address all of them one by one before moving critical services to the cloud. Now, in a typical organization like a financial institution, when you're talking about security, there's what we call communities of interest. In these communities of interest, in terms of security, people that have a different responsibility to offer as far as the migration of critical financial services to the cloud are concerned. We look at the board and executive management, which provide oversight and provide the funding and the support that is needed. We require the service of legal, not just legal team, but experienced legal team that understand technology, understand cloud computing infrastructure, to be able to go into the negotiation and stand between the bank and the cloud service provider in terms of negotiating the SLA, and also in terms of determining and agreeing on the shared responsibilities between the cloud service provider and the financial institution. Then we take up to the information technology, the IT team that are ensuring the availability of these services in terms of powering the technology. Then we look at information assurance team, which includes the risk team, security team, control, audit and compliance functions. These are the information assurance that ensure the confidentiality and integrity of these services in the cloud, while the IT team ensures the availability of these services in the cloud. Then we talk about the internal end users, and then the customers. End users too, as we say that, that's supposed to be your greatest asset. So the awareness, the cyber awareness that are required, the continuous training, even the customers too. More often than not, you see customers can be hacked, customers can be phished either by phone or by phone call or by even via email or calling them or anyhow. So these are training. These are simple tips you have to put customers to so that they will not be phished. As you know that is the most easiest way, social engineering. And in that social engineering, as you know today in Nigeria, phishing is the most easiest way to get customers' details and compromise their funds. So this slide is showing us the shared responsibility model. You see, what is our main objective and main focus? Our main focus here is ensuring security and privacy preservation for
Dr.
cloud
Frances,
data services.
you have to round up now. The time is not on our side.
Okay, and we are talking about the shared responsibility between the cloud service provider and the institution. And then we now have under this, we have monitoring and reporting TPAs, one of the provider independent assurance function. So we are looking at the benefit of maintaining the credits in cloud services here. I'm almost at this. I'm just rounding up. So we're looking at the secure financial. If you maintain the security of your information, financial services in the cloud, these are the benefits. If these are the benefits, the secure financial cloud service, compliance with regulation. Also know that banking is a highly regulated institutions. So if we comply, you comply with regulation, and also standardization of cloud services for Nigerian financial industry. Then first and foremost, customer satisfaction, and then good corporation image and reputation and other ones. So in some way, looking at the reality of diversity in financial business is compelling migration of financial services to the cloud. But the resultant security risks and private concern cannot be overemphasized. The business demand to migrate financial services to the cloud has remained a topmost issue for Nigerian financial institutions. This is due to large volume of customers' financial personal records that are required to be securely processed, transferred, and stored using the constantly changing state-of-the-art technology. And lastly, the incessant advancement in technology is making it difficult for banks to keep up with the rising change in data center infrastructure. Hence, the migration of financial services to the cloud infrastructure. So it's something that banks must do, but the challenge is there that how do we ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of these informations? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, for the wonderful presentation on migration of financial service in the cloud. Before we hand over to the panelists, a quick reminder to our speakers. A quick reminder to our speakers who have not submitted their slides should do that via the chat box. So I want to hand over to Mr. Sylvester. I have questions to ask you.
Thank you, my able doctor. Thank you for the presentation. Very awesome. I want to appreciate you. Thank you. But there are some little things that I wish you could just shed more light on. Basically, for example, you made mentions of customers. New which are still part of the weak link in the organization. I think I can share some of the experience we have had so far about the customer issue. But what can a customer do? Because even when you give them training, they still fall victim of it. For example, it's just to a stage that bill phishing is now a common thing. All those actors, all those criminals they'll call you to let you know that this is their from bank, they are from so and so on and so forth. When sometimes when you ask the customer to come for a training, it becomes a difficult thing, especially when it does not involve financial issues. So you really there's no money for them to gain from it. What do you think an organization can do in that regard? That is number one. Secondly, on the issues of on the issues of minimal security that cloud security have. You know, sometimes when an organization migrates to cloud, it indicates that it only needs a minimal security. You know, what does this really mean when it comes to issues of minimal security? So, because I don't really understand, does it mean that, you know, we don't need much security when it comes to cloud security because the service provider would be in charge of it? So, please, I want you to just shed more light on this issue. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. Your first question is what is customers expected to do to be secured? Of course, even banks would don't invite customers to come to the bank for training. There are different ways to offer these trainings to the customer. You can do radio jingles, even if you go to a typical bank's ATM, you see where banks put a notification. At times they send you SMS and telling you not to give out your PIN or any personal information. In fact, most of the documents you'll be getting from bank, especially when you're opening new accounts, all these are listed there. Even CBN too has also a setting and said even a radio jingle should also be done in local languages outside Igbo Yoruba, so that non-educated customers will also know it. So there's been a whole lot of awareness going on. It's just continuous awareness and continuous awareness. But just like I said, that when you're dealing with people, like you can't determine what someone can do next. That's why they say that people, your greatest assets, your weakest link are your strongest threats. So these threats and the weakest link are the main challenge that we have to live on. And it's an ongoing concern. It's continuous awareness. That's just the only thing. In different ways to internalize that awareness. For example, bank has been saying, the bank will never call you and say, give me your BVN, give me your PIN. So even if you don't know anything, any person calling you asking for your PIN, or even for your token or your PIN, or whatever, or your BVN, you should know by default that it's a fraudster that is speaking to you. Then on the issue of on the issue of the cloud security, you know, there are different information. We have a sensitive information, have non-sensitive information, and security is all about cost. So that's why they have the different model. You also have different deployment model, infrastructure model. You have the public, you have the hybrid, you have the private, depending on the kind of information that you're moving. Then on that service model, you have the infrastructure, you have the platform, you have the service model. Depending on the kind of information you're moving, you don't because all is also a function of a cost. So for a very critical one, but for your critical services, which are your crown jewels, you don't expect to move them to your public cloud or you subscribe to infrastructure as a service. No. Do you understand? So that's why they're categorized like that. But there are some non-critical systems, just because you don't want to continue to buy infrastructure, you move them to the cloud because anything happening to them does not have security implication to you. Even in the banks do classify their assets. So banks know their critical and non-critical services. So for critical services, it's expected that you consider all these factors and move them to secure this to the secure arrangement of cloud service. Thank you.